Oh, it won't let me record now.
It's okay. We are live, Angie.
Yay. Awesome. Here we go. Awesome. Event consulting. Awesome, Angie here, honoring the awesomeness in you. And okay, tech support. We are live. Yes. Tech support here. Let me get this. Hey, there we are. Awesome, Angie here, honoring the awesomeness in all of you. And if you're joining us live today, type in the chat and let us know that you're here. Tell us where you're from. We are live in studio talking about event consulting. Again, my name is Awesome Angie Engstrom, honoring the awesomeness in you. And my guest today is also an event consultant. This is Michelle V. Go ahead and wave your hand, say hi.
What's up?
What's up? All right. So what's really cool is Michelle and I are in a group of elite speakers together, and we're both event consultants. And we thought it'd be fun to jump on and talk about that. What does that mean? What is an event consultant? What is all this talk about making money using virtual events? Like, I thought we've tried that before, or some of you may have tried it. Maybe never even taken that step. You're like, oh, that's too much to think about. So we're going to talk about all those concerns and give you our perspective on what we've seen in live virtual events and how it can grow and monetize your business. So if you are a business owner, coach, consultant, author, anyone that has a really great product that's selling in the market and you just want another option to get it out there to the world, that's what we're talking about today. So Michelle, introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angie. Thanks for having me on. And again, this is going to be so much fun. And I'm Michelle V from Signature Stages. And I, like we said, I love events. I love events. That's why I'm in this business. And I love helping people make their own events because, and I wanted to ask you, Angie, have you ever, I think about one of my very favorite events, but like, have you ever been to an event that totally changed your life? I'm curious. And for anybody who's watching too, like, have you ever been to an event that changed your life? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell us about it. Tell us, Angie.
Absolutely. Well, I have a very vivid memory of being at like a personal development event. And I was kind of this timid, shy, like new entrepreneur. And I sat in the way back, way in the top back. I'm like, is there any way I could ever get on that stage or do what these people are doing and be this dynamic person? Like, it was just like epic on stage. And it was just so cool to be able to come from that event, and then you get all pumped up.
Yeah.
And it's just one more baby step toward the next step toward greatness. And now here I am. I'm running my own events, and I've spoken on Coliseum stages multiple times. And so now I know what it's like with the bright lights, and I got from the way back to on the stage. It is so super fun. It's
so good. So good. I love that because I think events, they just take you out of your normal day-to-day. You know how whenever you're, especially as an entrepreneur, you're just at your computer. I remember my kids coming in, taking a picture of me one time. I'm at my computer, like, it's like, you're on the grind, you're doing all the things. And so, it takes you out of that, and it takes you to this space where it's just it's like Disneyland. You know what I mean? You're in this magical space and everybody's talking fairies and rainbows, and you can really believe anything is possible in those moments. And like such a beautiful experience. And I was thinking recently back on the events that I've been to in my life, and barring the ones that were super, super boring, where people were talking just about themselves, I'm like, I don't think I've ever been to an event that hasn't changed my life.
Right? You know what? That's interesting, because even if it's not a good event, there's always something to take from it.
There's like one person on the stage. I remember I went to Funnel Hacking Live a couple years ago, and one person got up on the stage. It wasn't even about business. That she wasn't directly even talking about business, but it changed my personal life, where at the time I was struggling with emotional eating. I was a health coach, so I felt like a total hypocrite. Anybody like, I'm a hypocrite, right? And so that's the thing I was struggling with. And that's the thing I honestly needed to move my business forward, was to help me get out of this emotional eating struggles so that I could show up and actually help and coach people. And I had been struggling for 18 years trying to figure it out. And it was one thing that she said. And then I got her book afterwards, but it snapped, it like clicked for me, and I figured it out, and I stopped overeating, and it was incredible. But or people, somebody that you meet have a side conversation with, or maybe just the fact that they open up that possibility. Like for you saw somebody on stage and you're like, whoa, what does it take to be that person on stage?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the events themselves are just this amazing transformational thing. So was that whenever you realized was it that event that you realized I want to get up on stage, or was it a little bit later?
It actually was that event. It was that event. I was way in the back, and I just remember the rabbit went down the hole. Have you ever had that? Like, all right, we just swallowed the pill. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to get on that stage. And yeah. And then the journey began. The ups and the downs, and it's fascinating with events, because that was a personal development event, and a virtual event doesn't necessarily have to be just personal development. Because have you ever seen? I love Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes, yeah.
You ever seen him live? We saw him live. And that's like a 90-minute immersion, I think, just in his comedic glory. I mean, he's just so amazing. So think about for those of you listening, just think about any kind of event you've been to. It might have been even a concert, like a band concert or a rock concert, or just any kind of event where it's a transformation. You come in and with this unified goal of accomplishing something, you know what I mean? Like, whether it's being entertained or learning something. And then you're coming out the other end, and that feeling, you just can't even put the words. It's just that feeling. That's what we're doing with these virtual events. So amazing. It's just really
so good. Yeah. And like you, I remember having that moment where I was like, I want to do that. I remember saying it. I was talking to a coach. Anybody here got a coach? And I had this huge breakthrough where it opened up possibilities for me. And I was like, admitted out loud, I would love to have my own event. I would love to have run my own workshops and be a public speaker. Because at the time I was like, ooh, that's way in the future. I'm looking at those people on the stage. I'm looking at Russell Brunson. I'm looking at all that. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to have millions of dollars in the bank to sink into an event in order for me to do one. And that's what I used to think, that I'm going to do an event sometime, but it's going to be way out there, because right now that's just totally inaccessible to me. Who's going to come? You have to have 6,000 people. I'm going to have to get an event planner who's going to organize everything, put the bags together, and they're going to organize all volunteers, and they're going to put up the selfie board, and and I'm like, that's just going to be so much. And it's just, I want to do that someday. Right?
Someday.
Who here is like stuck in someday?
Someday. Yeah.
Someday I'm going to do that. Someday I'm going to make that amazing experience for somebody else.
Right.
Someday I'm going to get up on stage and I'm going to help transform people's lives.
Right.
Right.
Someday.
But now I've got this and I got this and I got this, and your brain's like, oh my goodness, I can't possibly do that right now. And it's so hard. And it comes up with all these excuses, and you just can't, and you get stuck in that. And shortly after that, I got an email from this lady named Eileen Wilder.
Okay. Okay.
And it was just one email.
Yep.
And I don't think I ever really opened her emails, actually, but it was this one email, and it was about events, virtual events. And I wasn't even, again, thinking about myself. I was working for another person doing virtual events, doing an event for this nonprofit. And I was like, oh, I should go see if I can learn anything about their event. Again, not even thinking about my someday event, but I go to that event, and she opened up our eyes to the fact that, hey, wait a second, we've got this thing called Zoom. I don't know if you've heard about it, but especially now that the pandemic happened, everybody knows how to use it, and they're comfortable getting on there. And you don't have to have $1 million to build out this huge thing. And people will actually come and they'll actually stay and they'll actually have fun.
Yeah, right.
And they'll actually buy something at the end.
Yep.
So not only can you come and create this transformational experience that doesn't take you the whole year to plan, but people will actually come and then you'll actually make money at the end.
Yeah.
Right?
When it's done correctly. Yes. When it's done correctly. And there's no travel. That's what I love is you don't have to, get the babysitter and the dog sitter and who's going to water my plants. And like,
that's the real important thing. Who is going to take care of my plants? Oh my God. You're hilarious. Yes.
Yeah. I just love the simplicity of being able to open Zoom and everyone's there and from all over the world. It's just so awesome. Time zones all over countries I've never even heard of before. It's like, we're all connected now. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
It's so good. But I don't know if you get this question a lot, but everybody asks me though, do people even come to virtual events? They're like, I like the in-person ones. And I love in-person events, man. I mean, my hand is raised high. Like I am obsessed with going to events and I just love them so much because the energy is there too. But people are asking me like, why would you do virtual? Are people even going to come? Do people even pay attention? Aren't they just like scrolling all the time on doing other things? And like, they're just like checked out. They're not even in there because they just got their name up, they're like, what's that? Like, it does not even work. What do you typically say to people?
Oh, goodness.
Curious.
It's even though someone might be there on screen, like you said, they just have their profile picture up, they might still be listening in. They may not be completely engaged, but as a speaker, as a presenter, as the MC of the event, and that's our job to help get that engagement whenever possible. Obviously, if they're driving, can't, but that's what's cool. They can still listen in if they are driving. But as the MC, there are specific ways that we're trained to be able to help keep that engagement up. The content is very important to keep the engagement. There's all these little nuances that, you learn as you start doing more virtual events, it comes more natural. And what's cool with the event consulting is we come in with that skill already, and you just need to show up and shine and be yourself. We come and support you with that.
Totally,
it's no sweat for you as the business owner.
Just remembering I made a YouTube video. Actually, my friend was talking about it. I made a little video recently where I was like, don't be boring. Right? Because if you think about it, they're like virtual, people don't feel connected. They're not going to participate. They're not going to watch. They're whatever. But I'm like, what do people do when they're done at the end of the day? Typically, what do you do when you've had a long, hard day? And you go downstairs, you go to you're all done. What do? You go turn the TV on.
Screen. Yep.
You binge on a Netflix show for hours. Okay. Yes. You're sitting there for hours and hours binging on a Netflix show because they just keep looping you in to the next piece. Right. Yes. And so if you're entertaining and you're looping them into the next piece, right? Like by the time I've been reading a book with my kids, the books do this too, right? Where, you finish the chapter and it's like cliffhanger and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to come back to the next thing, right? And so it's that process of looping them in. It's not that people don't want to be on Zoom. It's not that they can't watch TV for hours and hours or watch their computer screen. It's just that our tolerance for boring is so low.
Exactly.
We want to be entertained, and if you can be looping them in whenever you're talking, telling stories, looping them in, like you said, there's like some little tricks to like getting them to engage with you so that they're in it as well. Then they'll show up. It's like they'll stay, they'll pay attention, they'll stay, they'll participate. Just think of yourself as a Netflix or a comedian. Right?
Yes.
And you're up here, and not that you don't even have to be a comedian. I mean, I think, is it okay if we share something on here, Angie, like a super simple thing people could do?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. What are you thinking?
Yeah. So I'm thinking one of my like favorite things that we learned from our elite speaking program was the power of you, right? Mm-hmm. The power of you. Where if I am talking to you, right? Okay, and it's the premise, right? The premise that people, what people care about, right? Angie, what do people care about the very, very most?
themselves.
Themselves, right?
Yes.
Like, what
Their
do they want
name.
to hear
If they
about?
hear their name, they're like, what?
Right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
you could say their name, right? But they care about themselves, right? And so if you care about you and I'm talking about you the entire time, you're going to love my event. Okay.
Right.
Whenever I started doing this, people are like, oh my gosh, Michelle, you're like the best speaker ever. And I was like, it's not that. It's because I've been talking about you the whole time. I really have. So instead of, I don't know, do you want to give us an example, Angie?
Well, what's coming to my mind is it's the content does the work. It's the content and how to and structuring it in such a way. And the you is a big secret that even if you took that one little nugget and incorporated that in any speaking you're doing, anyone, what's an example? Like, hey, can anyone relate to, you're standing around in a group of people and you just kind of get checked out, like, I don't know what this, some guy just keeps rolling on about something and you just kind of check out. Has anyone ever done that? You know what I'm talking about. So it's that kind of talk, like bringing it, telling stories, but turning it back to them and helping them envision in their mind themselves and how they experience what you're saying.
Yeah,
Your
totally.
story, because stories are powerful. That's, from the time the earth has been created, like stories are how we as humans relate to one another, and we embody information, and information is hidden, wisdom is hidden in our stories when we know how to peel it away and present it in such a way that people kind of lean in and like, oh, I get that.
Yeah, totally. And it kind of reminds me of your story at the beginning too, about like sitting way in the back and looking at these people on stage. And it's even like taking it from me being way in the back, looking at on stage and just asking someone like, yeah, have you ever had that experience where you feel like you're so small, where you feel like you aren't good enough, you don't have enough confidence, you blah, blah, that you're sitting way in the back and you look at something that you want in your future and you're like, and it just clicks, that moment that it clicks and you're like, oh, I want to be that. I want to have that. I want to be that.
Yeah.
And it's
even though it's my story of sitting in the arena, you're experiencing it because of the way that I'm explaining it. And it's that visualizing. And there's a whole art form. I mean, people study their entire lives how to do storytelling.
They do, but it's cool. I remember after learning that one thing, I was listening. Another friend was like, oh, you've got to listen to this amazing presentation by this lady. And she's got this amazing concept, because you talked about content. And I think sometimes we're like, oh, if we just teach them cool stuff, then they'll like want to buy, or they'll be super interested or whatever. And she had the coolest concept. And I can't remember what it is right now, but I remember it was like a super cool concept. It was a big aha. And I was like, wow, that was cool. But I was wanting to scream at the video at the same time. I was watching it with my daughter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're missing out on connecting with the audience so much. Because she was just like, I did this and I did this and I did that. And she was talking about being so depressed that she couldn't even get out of bed. And there's like guacamole on her floor and her kids are running around everywhere. And I was like, you should have drawn us into the story, because everybody's had that experience, right? You've had that experience where your house is totally trashed. You don't want your friends to come over. Like, you want someone to come save you and clean the whole thing up, but you don't want to come see like who even knows what's in the sink and what's on there. And you're just like, anyways, we're going off on a tangent, but really the point is you don't have, there's super simple ways to not be boring. You don't, and especially if you find somebody who's already kind of mastered those, and you get to step into it and use their, like, as a good NC or something, you get to step into it and use their skills to just help you launch forward. And I think I like to explain it like this too, like a podcast interview. I feel like the MC is almost like a podcast interviewer, sort of, where they give you the structure, or at least this is what the Invent Consulting does, right? Like, they give you the structure and they're asking you these questions, and you've already got stories that totally shine. And so it's just us going on and asking the questions and adding in some little stories here or questions or embellishments here and there to help you shine as the person who has the event and help you sell your thing. So,
you know, what's coming, that's wonderful, Michelle. And what came to mind when you were saying that is a wedding. Like, think about a wedding. And if you have an event planner a wedding planner to plan your event, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but anyone that's been married and had to do it themselves versus having someone help you do it, it just takes the pressure off. You get to just show up and shine, and you're doing your thing. And the wedding planner has, they're behind the scenes handling everything, the flowers, the caterer, that, they've got all that handled. You just show up and shine and be the bride and groom and just have the best day of your life, knowing that everything's handled.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't it? That's what
and from somebody who did it themselves, I'm just thinking about like the difference between my wedding and somebody's wedding who had a wedding planner, because my husband and I, we were like not fresh out of high school, but we were still in college and not much money and just trying to nickel and dime everything. And like, by the time we got to the table settings, I was like, I don't even care what's on the table. And it was like, and it looked okay. It looked okay, but it was like, whereas the wedding planner they've done it so many times that they're like, oh yeah. Oh, I have an event planner friend, and she's like, yeah, I have my tool belt basically that I wear all the time, and it's got tape and it's got this and it's got this and it's got this, because I know that this happens and this happens and this is, and you should do it in this order so that you avoid this problem, and they've done it so many times that they've got it down obviously to an art. So it helps you avoid lots of mistakes that you would have otherwise made, or have like droopy flowers on your table. Or
I'm glad I brought that up, because we got the good contrast here. Because you didn't have an event, a wedding planner.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And we did. And it was so nice not to have to worry about any of that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I think I had a friend who did some planning, and it was like my mom's friend helped us out a little bit, but she didn't like do the whole thing. And oh my gosh, maybe it's just like looking back at your high school pictures too. And that's the feeling that I get. It's like, whenever you look back at your high school pictures and you're like, what was my hair doing? And like, what was I wearing? Why did I think that color looked good on me? It's like a lot of that was going on. And then we had like a terrible photographer, but I have an amazing marriage. Everyone.
There you go. That's what matters. That's what matters.
You can still make it through, but it's just like, how do you want to make it through is the question, Angie. How do you want to get through that?
Exactly. Yeah, because as a business owner, you can do your own events. You totally could.
Yeah, totally.
You absolutely could. Or if you have staff, just, you can have them do it. What's really cool with what we're doing as event consultants is we work with you for a few of the events. And by the time we get done with you after a few events, most likely you've learned enough. You could just keep doing them on your own. And, which is wonderful.
I know. Okay. So here's the thing too. Whenever we joined the Elite Speakers, it was a while ago, and I was thinking, I got this. Okay, who here's like, I am so great at speaking. Okay, everybody I know, including myself, thinks they're like the most amazing speaker in the world. Okay. Yeah. And so I go into it and I was like, I got this. I know how to do tech. I've done speaking before. Like, yeah, I'm going to be making like $1 million in 6 months at my events. Like, this is going to be so good. And, even though I don't have a list, I don't know. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. And then, wow, it was a little bit harder. Then I went and my flowers were drooping on the table. You know what I mean? And it took a lot of practice actually to get good at engaging the crowd, and a lot of practice. Yeah. And it reminds me too of my first. Have you ever had like a really bad event when I did my first webinar?
Who hasn't? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I did my first webinar thinking again, I got this. Got Russell Brunson's book out. It told me exactly what to put in my webinar. I followed that thing. I made slides, Angie. Do you know how much I love slides? I do not. Okay. I hate slides, but I was like, that's what you do. If you have a good webinar, you've got some good slides, and I made them all pretty. And I put like little jokes. I thought they were funny and they were not. You know what? Everybody showed up and it was so miserable. It was so awful. It was like the energy. Have you ever been to one of those events where the energy is just like yuck? And I was so needy. I was so needy. And I just like, but I was so freaking scared too. As I'm scared and I'm needy and I'm like, and wait, there's more. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just cringed. It was like so bad. I should find it. I'm sure I like destroyed that thing. But anyways, but at the time too, it felt terrible and I knew it was bad, but I had absolutely no idea why it was bad either. At the same time, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't even think I could ever do a webinar again, actually. Right. But you know, whenever someone else outside of you, number one, can like help you do it, but also having someone to be like, oh, hey, this is like, here's the reasons things went south. Okay. here's the reason why it felt like that or why you should not have said that. And then it's like, oh, so even if, you know, the first event doesn't go perfect, obviously it's never perfect, but you know, then after the first event, you say, okay, here's the things we're going to do different next time, tweak it up a bit, optimize, like you said. So by the end, I call it like your $1 million machine, right? Like by the end, you got your machine all tweaked and fixed. Cause when you make a machine, okay, I'm like rambling. I hope nobody.
Well, okay. What's coming to mind for me? This is my pancake bit.
Okay, go for it. Yeah. Oh, that's your pancake. Okay.
Yeah. You know, when you're making pancakes, yeah, you guys have all made pancakes. You get the pan all hot and ready, and you just don't, you know, is it hot enough yet? And you just kind of dip a little bit, you know, and you're just not quite sure if it's the right temperature. And then you're like, all right, I got to go for it. And you dump it on there and like, it's not hot enough.
Or it's too hot and it's all
or
burnt.
It's too hot or so. That first pancake, does anybody even eat it? Like, is it dog food? Like, right? Like you or
and then there's like way too much oil, so it's got
yes
around the edges. You know, my stepdad actually loved the first pancake because it's like all greasy, you know, it's like super greasy, and it's like got the crunchy on the edges. And he's like, I love the crunchy on the edges.
It's always somebody, yeah.
But yeah.
Funny.
You know, your mom loves your first webinar too.
Yeah. That's good. Oh, that's good. That's so true.
And your best friend, they're like, that was great. That was so great.
I love that. So when you're making pancakes, you know, the first one, maybe the second one, they're not that great. But once you get it going, you know, the pan gets it's perfect, you know, and then you're just one after another, they're just coming out nice and beautiful. Once you get that temperature right and the oil's right and pumping them out until you run out of batter.
Okay. I'm going to take your analogy to the next level too, because I have children who are like, my oldest is turning 11 and she loves to cook. And, you know, so whenever we're making pancakes, they want to flip them.
Okay.
And so if you remember the first time you ever flipped a pancake, that's what we're really talking about. That's what we're really talking about here.
Yep.
Or like the first time you poured the pancake and the first time you ever flipped the pancake. And then you're like, oh no, it's all over the side of the pan. And that one really is dog food. And it's all like soft on the inside because you flipped it too early, and that's really what we need to compare it to. And that's reality, baby. But again, then mom loves that pancake, boy. She loves it. Anyways, I don't even know where we're going from here, but
so
let's talk about Angie. What are the aspects of a good event, right? Like, let's say we do want to at least conceptualize, because maybe I don't even have, how do I make an event? How do I make one that makes money? How do I, like, what am I even include? Because we were talking earlier about teaching and how some people are like, well, if I just have a good workshop, then lots of people will sign up.
Yeah, the content is important, but it needs to be structured in the right way so that people can receive it and get that transformation. Yeah. So opening a crowd, is this where you're going? Like kind of lay out an event?
Like what are the top 3 things that you have to have an event that's going to be a money making transformational?
Oh, good question. The top three. Well, content for sure makes a difference. The way you structure the content, having content, and if you're already
Having
selling,
content,
if you're already selling a product that is working, you have the content. You know what you say to customers one-on-one on a phone. Now we're just amplifying it in a bigger arena with more people instead of.
That's a great way to look at it. That's a great way to look at it, though, that it's more like it's almost like a sales conversation, but it doesn't feel salesy. But that's the structure, is more a structure of a sales conversation versus like, we're just gonna have fun and we're just gonna come and I'm gonna teach you a bunch of stuff. I did watch somebody's webinar, by the way, recently, and it wasn't bad in the way that mine was bad. It was bad in a different way, where she had great content and it was a great aha. And by the end, and she was just like, today we're gonna learn this, and then the whole thing she learned taught us stuff, and then it was over, and there was a button at the bottom. I was like, you might want to include an ask.
Yeah.
You might want to include an ask in there.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry.
Yeah.
Tangent. So the content.
That's good. That's
content going in, more like a sales conversation type
sales
of
conversation. Format. And then because it's a virtual event, the interaction and the engagement is really important. It's super important, because otherwise it's just them sitting looking at a screen, which they're going to get a lot from. But the more you can get them to engage and get the physical involved, like taking notes is one level. I think the stats are what you remember, 20%, or I don't know. There's a certain percentage you remember when you write on paper, but when you chat, like and this took me a while to learn, like my brain doesn't process right. Like I'm listening, and you also want me to read the chat, and you want me to type in the chat, and like that takes training. Some of you people are really good at
yes.
it. Naturally.
Well, yeah, like you want to put in some certain, like, hey, what's up? Engage with us. I always use the analogy too of like a paper bag. Whenever you come with a virtual event, it's easy to just put a paper bag on your head and come to the event and just sit there. But like in reality, if you went to a real event, you wouldn't just have a paper bag on your head, not talking to anybody or not saying anything, or like doing maybe some people do, sort of. Don't be those people at the back of the room who are just typing the whole time, and they're like, you're not going to get much out of that. So yeah. So the content, the engagement, one of the big things I learned, not just to like ask them to do something, but I mentioned that nonprofit I was working with. So I'm going to mention two aspects. One was getting the people there, right? So COVID happened, and they were like, we need to go virtual. They had this conference that was in person, and they were just going to, they're old school too. So it was like pulling teeth to get them to go virtual, but they're like, oh no, this might be the second year we have to cancel because we don't know if they're going to let us come to the hotel. And they're like, Michelle, we need to do virtual. And I was like, sure, I'll help do the virtual side. You never know what you're getting into.
Right.
Like I can do the virtual, one hard month. It's like a month before. It was a month before their big event.
Wow.
And they're like, help us do virtual. So I wrote all the emails. We sent them out to their email list. We got some affiliates. We gave them the emails. I mean, it was a solid month. I was working my butt off. But here's the takeaways here. We sent an email. We sent some emails to their list. Less than 10,000 people, and almost 500 people registered from their list.
That's awesome.
Okay. And if you know anything about email campaigns, 5% of your list is unheard of.
Yeah.
It is insane. And I'm going to say it's just all of my email writing capabilities, but that's not what happened. What happened was, if you've never done if you have an audience who loves you, who's been following you for a while, and who knows you and likes you, and you've never done something like this before, and you give them the opportunity to participate with you, right? You're like, hey, come hang out with me, and you can ask me anything that you want, and it's going to be really cool. People were thanking us. they were like, oh my gosh, I have been waiting years to go to this conference, because, you know, when you go to a conference, it's like, and theirs was dirt cheap, like barely paying the bills, because they're a nonprofit. That's what nonprofits do, right? And so it was just like dirt cheap, barely paying the bills. But then people were still paying over $1,000 to come, because you got to pay for the food. Oh, and because they fed you everything. They fed you everything, and you had to pay the hotel, blah, blah. And so it was just inaccessible to some people on their list. And so everybody's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I've been waiting so long to come. And that's one of the reasons we had such a huge following. So I'm getting off track here from the original thing. We'll get back around. But my point is, I think we just make up this story that it's going to be so hard to get people to come to this thing, but it's like, they want to come. And then our other friends shared with their list, and 250 more people signed up. In 1 month, where we just slapped it together, we had 750 people virtually sign up for that event.
That's awesome.
That's crazy town.
And I like how you said, I forget the word you said, but basically access. People, it was inaccessible to certain people because of the travel. That's a big barrier for a lot of people. There's a lot that goes into when you got to travel across the country or the world or wherever to get somewhere. Otherwise, just flip a screen on and you're there. It's just such another world. It's just another world. And
it's an easier yes. It's an easier yes for people too, right? Because you're not just asking them to spend their money, you're asking them to spend their time.
Yes.
So for busy people too, like you were saying, I gotta spend time finding someone who's gonna want to buy flowers. I've got to spend some time finding my hotel. I've got to get there a day early, because I have to travel, and then I'm going to be tired, and I have to find my hotel, and I've got to get some food, and I've got to settle down. And so then it ends up being 2 or 3 days longer than the actual event. And so this is a money save, but also time saving for people to just like jump on their Zoom and totally show up, you know, on short notice. So the other big thing, anyway, so people will come, people show up, guys, even if you're like doing it the last night. So the other thing though, that I didn't know at the time that I was doing that event, is the power of selling something at your event, right?
Yes.
So this is a nonprofit, and they've been doing these for years, just educational. It's so cool, but they didn't really sell anything at their event except the next event. Right? Or they have a membership that's like $35 a year. It's like super cheap, right? $35 a year. That's their membership, right? And so they sold that and their thing. And when I started doing the math later, I was like, okay, before we get to the math though, this is their experience. Have you ever done like, whenever you're at a really great event, you just like want more.
Yeah.
You're asking for more.
Yeah.
Right. And how are you familiar with not the Hoover vacuum, Kirby vacuums?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Kirby vacuums. You know what I'm talking about? Where they used to go to your house. So I'd be like, Angie, let me show you, like, I've got the best, whenever you get a good, I don't know if this is just like a mom thing, but when you get a good piece of equipment that you're using in your house and you're like, oh my gosh, I have this vacuum and it's amazing. Angie, you got to come check out this vacuum. And my buddy is going to come show you all about this vacuum. And so you're like, sure. Yeah, he can come over, and you have coffee, and it's like 2 or 4 hour event where he's going to come show you about this vacuum, and he sits at your house. I don't know if you've ever been a Cutco guy came to our house one time, and they're like, check out this vacuum, and it can suck up a bowling ball. And then they're like, dump this crap out on your floor and we're going to suck it up. What I'm talking about? And it's really fun. You got this experience, but by the end, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to have this vacuum.
The experience. It was the experience.
It's the experience. And then what if they're like, this is an awesome vacuum, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if you had this vacuum at your house?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Why don't you go out and make that vacuum? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why don't you go figure out how to make that vacuum? Because this is going to save you so much time and energy, and it's going to be so amazing for you. Right? That's what we did at that event. That's what we did. We said, this is what's possible. It was a health thing, you know, like this is what's possible for your health, education, educate. And then we're like, go do that. Join our membership. We'll send you a magazine. Here's the manual on how to make that vacuum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A disservice to people, not to give them something valuable that you've spent so much time creating that's going to save them so much time and energy and all the things. And so we didn't sell a high ticket thing. We didn't give them anything like their Kirby vacuum.
Wow. And
did you know who, Angie, I'm going to ask you this, who is going to appreciate their vacuum more? The $2,000 Kirby vacuum owner with a $20, $30, maybe $200 vacuum owner.
Right.
Who's going to appreciate it more? Who's going to use it more? Who's going to be happier about the experience?
That's right.
Who's going to tell all their friends about their vacuum?
Right. Yeah.
The $2,000 vacuum person, because they had that experience. They understand the value. They're so proud. And who's more proud of themselves about buying their vacuum? I'm just saying.
So true. Yeah.
They get so much out of it because you charge them more, and you can deliver more because you charge them more.
Yeah.
It's a win-win-win. So we show up at those events. That's my sell for you. Whenever you show up at your event, people want to buy your vacuum. They want you to have one, and they want you to buy it from you. And then they're going to be so excited. They're going to tell all their friends about it, and they'll be so proud of themselves and happy with it. So if we had sold a $2,000 Kirby vacuum, I did the math. If you got like 20% of the people you're going to buy, there was about 250 people live. There was about 200 online at one time. So if we pitched something, that's about 450 people. And if we sold just a $2,000 thing to these 450 people, 90 of them would have bought something. That's $180,000 day on a $2,000 vacuum.
Yep.
If I was Russell Brunson and I sold him a $25,000 thing,
right.
That's over $1 million.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the power. Yeah.
That nonprofit wouldn't know what hit them. They were so nickeling and diming. And if we had just put together something that would serve their audience and sold it to them, even for just $2,000, they would have been set for like the next 2 years.
Yes.
They would have had the opportunity to finally expand their business and hire people. And instead of just, oh my gosh, these poor people, they're spending all day. Who's spending like 80 hours a week on their stuff? Right. And if you've got a cash infusion like that, that's a game changer. Well,
and if you're a business owner right now listening to this, you might already be doing events. And what Michelle just went through, you might just be given, the $20 things out, and hopefully a light bulb just went off where you're like, we need a Kirby vacuum.
I need a Kirby vacuum. Right.
And that's part of what we do as event consultants, is help you figure that out. What is your Kirby vacuum?
Totally. Yeah. You need a Kirby vacuum. You do. If you haven't gotten that out of what we're saying, let's tell it to you straight. You need a Kirby vacuum, my friends. I was just talking to somebody who I'm doing an event with in a couple of months, and he has an amazing organization. Again, he has a nonprofit, but he has like for-profit stuff that helps pay for the nonprofit activities. But his for-profit stuff, he's been selling honey, jars of honey.
Okay.
And which I love honey. I don't know. Do you like,
yeah, definitely.
My vegan friends are gonna I'm not 100% vegan. I eat honey. So, but honey's great, but he's like, when I took him through this process, we were talking about the math and getting him a Kirby vacuum. He's like, yeah, I could sell 1,000 jars of honey, or I could sell one. You know what I mean? I can sell one thing. I'm like, if 10 people showed up at your event, that's like as much as you selling 1,000 jars of honey. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
Guys, we are passionate about that. Like, go get your Kirby vacuum. Sell it.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. And what's cool with a business that is selling, honey or some, small products, you probably have a big list.
Totally.
You've got people that already know, like, and trust you. And just like what Michelle laid out, you put together the right email and just say, hey, here's a date. We're all getting together. Here's what's happening. And here's, what the benefit is to you to be there. You have nothing to lose but some time. And if anything, you're connecting with your community, and the right people are just going to show up and say, hey, I want your Kirby vacuum.
Get that Kirby vacuum. Well, and here's one more before, I know we're getting long-winded. So here's one more thing that I do want to just nail home too, is we get in our way so much, right?
Oh, sure.
We talked about like tomorrow, or it's later. I can't remember the word I use, right? It's someday. And it's someday because today it feels like too much. It's too much to figure out. It's too hard. It's going to take too long. I don't know how to put my content. I don't know how to get people engaged. I don't know how to get people to come to my event. I don't know how to sell that thing at the end. How do I sell that Kirby vacuum? But all of that stuff, people ask me that stuff all the time, but you know what? Somebody else has already figured all that stuff out.
Yep. Just like the wedding planner.
Just a skill. Yeah. Somebody already went through that hard work of figuring all that stuff out.
That's right.
And you could just pay someone to do that for you.
Yes.
And in paying someone to do that for you, would it be worth it to pay someone to do that for you if you had $180,000 day, if you had $1 million day? Like,
it pays for itself. Absolutely.
Or should I wait till someday? Someday I'll make $1 million event, but not today. I don't want to have that today. I don't want to have that this month. I think I'll wait 6 months or so, because that would be better timing or something. I was thinking, okay, I can't keep going. You can cut me off whenever you need to, Angie. But whenever you started your YouTube channel or your podcast or something, I remember I was like, I'm going to start a podcast, and I bought the course.
Oh,
I bought me a course to start a podcast. Guess how long it took me to start my podcast after I bought that course?
Years?
2 years. Yes. Yeah. 2 years. Because it was always someday. Because it was going to be so hard. And there were so many pieces. And, once you put it up and you put it up and you put it up. And do you know how many more subscribers I would have if I started 2 years earlier? And that was back whenever not everybody and their dog had a podcast. It was still fairly uncommon to have a podcast.
Right.
That was like 100 episodes more I could have had on my podcast if I just started. Do you know how long it took me to do my podcast after I finally got started?
Immediately? Just push the button?
It was like a week. Did you know it wasn't even that hard? Because somebody already did. And if I add somebody else to it, it would take them even less time. If I set somebody else's podcast up for them right now, it would be like an hour. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like, what was I waiting for?
Yep.
How long are you going to wait? How much more time are you going to waste until you have something like this for your business? Yeah.
Can anyone relate to that? Like just putting it off, like something that you just wanted to do and you just, I'll do it later. That later never comes. Now is it. Take one little baby step and make it happen.
And then you have to deal with all that. Yeah. What are you going to tell yourself someday when you finally do make that? When you finally do have your event, when you finally do have your workshop, when you finally do change people's lives and transform them, and they come up at the end and they say, Angie, that was amazing. You totally changed my life. You know what you're going to say to yourself in that moment besides good job? There's going to be a moment of great. And then there's going to be a moment of what?
I did it. Oh my gosh, we're changing lives.
We're changing lives. And why did I wait so long?
Why did I wait so long? Yep.
Why have I been wasting so much of my time?
It was so hard.
Right?
What'd you say?
Why am I? Why did I wait so long to do this? Why did I put this off so long? That's always what we say to ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, it's too hard, or I'm not capable, or I'm not good enough or whatever the garbage is.
Put that trash over here. Go like this.
Yeah.
Grab it. Just.
Oh, wait.
We're ready to go.
The camera's opposite.
I know that sounds silly. Actually, I do that kind of stuff all the time. I'm like,
oh, I did too. Yeah.
I'm like, money, mine.
Yeah.
Not here.
That's right. Yeah,
Anyways,
absolutely.
I know we could go on and on and on.
Oh gosh, this has been fun, Michelle. This has been super fun. Yeah, we got to wrap this up. We can do this again. This is awesome.
Yeah, this was so fun. But yeah, so if any of you, if any of you are interested in doing that sort of thing, but you're like, I don't even know, I want to like try before I buy kind of thing. I've got an event coming up soon. We did a little video on it earlier. I've got an event coming up soon, as whenever we're creating this video, but it's regularly called $1 Million Machine Live, where we go through each of the steps and kind of talk about the three main things, how, and then we go into the how, because I know you want to know the how do you get people there, how, and then from there, how do you do that in 30 days? How do you do it now?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now. And then I think we got the link in the notes, but
we'll put the link down in the notes. So check back on the video down in the comments in the notes section. We'll put it in both places so that you can easily click on it and take a look at what's happening. Because no matter when you're watching this video, we've got something going on all the time. So we'll update the links in the chat and in the description below. And come see what we're up to, because I know we'll be doing some events as well on my side. And it's just super fun. Oh my gosh, it's just been an honor, Michelle, to just riff with you on this. And it's just been really, really cool to learn. It's been a learning process for both of us together and as the group as a whole. And it's not just us. There's like this powerhouse of information and people and knowledge that are behind us, that are helping propel us so that we can propel you all onto success. So we all win. Everyone needs to win.
A coach has to have a coach too, right?
Yeah.
If your coach doesn't have a coach, or if your powerhouse doesn't have a powerhouse, you need to go find somebody else.
That's right. Yeah. So it has been super fun. Thank you, Michelle, for joining us here. And
so let us know about your events. Comment below and tell us you
comment below.
Let us know about your events. Yeah.
Yes, we want to hear from you. Put any questions or any of your takeaways. What were some of your takeaways? Put them in the comments, or questions, or just let us know you were here. Just say hi. Let us know how this served you, because that's our goal, is to just impart through us some of the wisdom we've been, our experience with events. That's what we do now to help you all make lots of money, multiply your revenue with virtual events. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, you all. Keep being awesome, everybody. What are you planting in your life so that you can live a life that you desire? Love you guys.